G'day guys, welcome to another video. Back in the studio again, such as it is. If you saw how small this place was, you wouldn't believe it. Not much bigger than a broom cupboard. Only a small exaggeration there. What I want to chat to you about this time is a little bit about our past adventures and how we got to where we are today. We started off like most people, city jobs, working the old 9 to 5. But after quite a few years of that, we started doing a little bit more travelling, heading out to places that at the time were a little bit more off the beaten track. We'd go off once or twice a year on the annual holidays, do some camping, the usual stuff around the southwest, and we'd never really gone much further away from Perth than Kalbarri, which is about 600 kilometres. It wasn't until 1995 that we actually planned a big trip north, and for us it was a pretty big trip at the time. We went up to Port Hedland and from there went on to Broome, and on the way back came down through Marble Bar and did some four-wheel driving in the old Spectron four-wheel drive, and you can see that there. It was actually a terrible four-wheel drive. It performed reasonably well as an off-road vehicle, but it did nothing but break down. By the time I finished paying for the Red Nightmare, I think I'd spent about double the purchase price. From memory, there were a couple of gearboxes replaced, a radiator replaced, and a whole bunch of other smaller things. It was a very expensive vehicle to keep on the road. But it was my first taste of four-wheel driving. And we went down the Packsaddle Road from Marble Bar and then cut through to Karijini. This was the first time we'd ever been to that area of Australia, and it was a real eye-opener for me. I knew I wanted to go back there, and I knew that I wanted to see a lot more of Australia. So it took us a couple of years to think about things, and in 1997 we actually started to plan a trip around Australia. We bought ourselves an old Bedford bus that had been done up into a motorhome, and we planned to spend about 12 months travelling around and working and having a really good look at what Australia was like. Having never been out of WA, at least on a driving trip, we didn't have a lot of experience of long-term travelling. We didn't know what to expect living on the road, and we didn't have the resources that we have today, that's for sure. But we decided we'd take 12 months, we'd work our way round, pick up whatever work we could. We both had city jobs, so unfortunately when it came to things like mechanical work or just about anything practical, we were pretty green. We didn't know a lot at all. But we decided to have our big adventure. We were in our late 30s, early 40s, and certainly a lot fitter than I am today. And off we went. To begin with, we decided that we wouldn't take off without doing a test trip. At the time we had a small half-cabin boat, so we hooked that onto the back of the bus and we headed up to Exmouth for a few weeks. Now, Exmouth back in those days was nothing like the Exmouth of today. Today it is a tourist hotspot. Back then hardly anybody had heard of it. It was an amazing fishing place for those who knew about it, and you could literally pull up on the side of the road, find a track, head down it and find a camp spot right on the beach. Free camping. Believe it or not. You do that these days, you'll get a big fine from the local Shire Council. This here shows you where we were camped at the time. Beautiful spot, a short walk from the beach. We managed to launch the boat up at what was at the time Kalis Fisheries, and then we just motored down a couple of kilometres to where we were camped up and moored the boat. And from there it was just a matter of going out fishing whenever the weather would let us. It was an amazing experience, and we knew by the end of the trip that we would really be quite suited to living on the road, and we had no qualms at all about heading off. So once the main trip was over, off we went. We spent some time around Bunbury. We then moved further down to Albany, and with us at the time was one of our old dogs, Sam. Unfortunately his health was failing and we lost him when we were in Albany. It was really something that affected us quite badly. He'd been with us for about 15 years. So we decided enough was enough. It was time to head north. Christmas was approaching, so we popped home for Christmas. That turned out to be a huge waste of time. And before heading north, we managed to spend, I think it was probably a few weeks, at Heron Point. Now, anybody who's familiar with Heron Point today is going to know that you can't stay there for a few weeks. At the time, it was free camping, and we met a lot of incredible people there. We went mulleting, prawning. The crabs were unbelievable at the time, not like they are now. And we really got to know a lot of very interesting and fun people. We had some amazing times, but eventually it was time for us to move north. We were able to line up some work at what was the Caylus Prawn Fishery, and off we went. We were heading away from home, and we were on our way around Australia. So what I'm going to bring you in this video is a bit of a rundown of the trip we took. Show you a little bit about the bus. It was an old 1962 Bedford, an SB series bus that had been converted sort of into a motorhome. We had some extra cabinet work done, got it mechanically sorted out, but that really didn't solve all the problems. We were to have quite a few breakdowns on the way around Australia. But in any case, that was it. We were off. We'd done our test trip. We were happy with the way everything went. It wasn't trouble-free. We almost lost the rear bumper, and that had the boat attached to it at the time, but we got that sorted out at Carnarvon. But eventually it was time to make a break from Perth. We'd been hanging around close to home long enough. So off we went back up to Exmouth, remembering of course that we'd done our test trip up there as well. This time we stayed in the caravan park, and the first thing that greeted us when we got there was a broken down air conditioner. This was in the peak of the hot season, absolutely stinking hot. I can't believe how hot it was in that bus. So the first order of business was to get down to the local electronics store and to have a new air conditioner put in the back. So we got that done, and we got on with sorting ourselves out and earning a little bit of money while we were in town. I got a very short-term job on one of the pearling boats, went out cleaning pearl shell. That was quite an experience. Now unfortunately in those days all cameras were analog, and a lot of the footage we'll show you is going to be analog, so it's not going to be the greatest quality in the world, but hopefully it'll be good enough for you to enjoy a bit and see what we did as we travelled around. I won't make each section too lengthy, but it did in the end take us about a year before we finally crossed the WA border into the Northern Territory. So hopefully you'll enjoy the following and follow us on our big trip, which in the end took us 5 years. Yeah, not 1 year at all. 5 years we were on the road full time heading around Australia, and it was the trip of a lifetime, I can tell you that.